Good evening, everyone. My name is Craig Brown, and I've got the pleasure of taking you through tonight's session on creating some basic widgets and user-defined functions for further maths. Now, what I'm going first of all to give this some context before we get started. So if I concentrate over here, you should now see an exam question based on a past paper where I've got some data. And I'll go to the top. We're going to start off with Univariate Statistics. And so we've got the average age of some men in 15 countries here. And the question is asking if you want to calculate the mean and standard deviation of the average age of men from those countries. And then the second part of it is explain whether or not the data point 26 is an outlier or not. Now, this is something that you would have seen in the past. Now, what we're going to do is construct a widget on that will actually get us into this question quickly. The purpose of a widget is that we created ourselves, so it's essentially a template that we just put in the data and the results fall out for us. So now you'll notice that I'm using the software, and although everything that we cover tonight can be done on the handheld, and we're pretty much using the handheld buttons presses, as you'll see, it is a lot easier to, in fact, create these on the software. So you probably should keep that in mind. And so we'll get started. We'll create our first widget for the night. So we're going to, a widget is just simply a calculator file. And so I'm going to start a new file. And I've just made a blue, so hit menu. I want to create the first, if you like, application I'm going to use in this is a lists and spreadsheets application. And so what we'll do is, first of all, create in the first column the variable called, for instance, data.
Craig, we can't see your calculator.
Ah, can't you? Well, I shall try that. Can you see it now, Chris?
Yeah, it's there now.
Beauty. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so as you can see, I've created the first, on the list of spreadsheets page, I've created the variable data. To get this work, I'm going to use data that I know actually work into. Right, so we're testing it, and I suggest you do that when you're actually creating these yourself. And so I'm going to use the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so that's our data for a second to get this widget working. So okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press Control-I to insert a calculator page for a start. And so on the calculator page, we'll use the calculator page to actually get the to calculate the statistical results. So at the moment, our widget is made up of 2 pages. The first page has got a list and spreadsheets application, and the second page has got a calculator application. I'm now also going to insert a third application, and that's going to be a data and stats. Okay, and so down the bottom here, I'm going to, where it says click add variable, choose my data variable, and then what I'm going to do is choose the Boxplot. I'm actually right-clicking on the mouse, if you might have noticed, which is actually the same as pressing Control menu when it's a shortcut if you like to actually get to that menu. Now here's our Boxplot. They're the results that we're expecting for the data that I've got, so I can see that that's working. I'm just going to now test to see if these calculations are also going to work for me. So I'm now back on the calculator application. So I press Menu, Statistics, number 6, Stat Calculations, and then one variable statistics. Number of lists we won, and the X list is data. I press OK, and there's the statistical results being calculated there. Now, what I'll draw your attention to is when we actually do that, there is also a list of variables that actually get created when I hit the var button, and we're going to actually make use of that. All right, so I'm going to click off that, and essentially we can create a widget now out of this. They're the key, if you like. They can be the key tools that you wish to use to do some of these calculations on the univariate statistics. Now what I'm going to do is create a widget out of this. Now a widget can only be one page, but at the moment I've actually got 3 separate pages. So we can do a little trick here to actually combine these 3 pages. If I press Doc, Page Layout, and number 7 says Group, I can actually start grouping the pages. I'll also draw your attention to the shortcut there, Control-4. Okay, so if I hit that, you can see now I've actually combined the first 2 applications, or the first 2 applications on the first 2 pages. And so I'm going to, well, I could actually do the same thing again to combine the 3rd page, but remember that shortcut that I just drew your attention to, Control-4, okay, is the, actually combines the 3rd of the 3 pages. So there are the 3 of them there. So now we've combined 3 pages in one. Now what we do is we save this as a widget. Now this is where we need to be careful as to how we go about saving it. I can't stress this enough. All right, so we're going to press Control Save. Now when you've saved files in the past, you would have just saved them as documents in the regular My Documents folder. And this is something that we have to be careful of, because a widget actually has to be saved in a separate folder. So what I'm going to do is show you what that is, and here it is. It's this folder here, the My Widgets folder. It almost makes sense, I think, considering the fact we are trying to create a widget. So I click on that. As you can see, you must make sure you click on it. It's got to say up here, Save in My Widgets. That's the key. Now that I've done that, I'm going to call it a name, and I'm going to call it W1 for widget 1, because I've got quite a few widgets. You'd probably call it something a bit more sensible than that, to be honest. Something like Univariate Statistics Calculations would be a sensible name. You should be calling them something sensible that you understand, that reflects what the actual widget does. So I'll take that as an important tip. And now I'm going to save it. There it is. Our widget has now been created. Right, now what we want to do is actually use it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, to save time, I'm going to point out the fact that I've actually got that data here opened up in a separate folder. There it is there. It's in a separate file. All right, and so it's going to save me some typing it in. So I'm going to pretend I'm now in a test, and or a SAC or an exam, and I actually need to calculate the mean and the standard deviation of the average age of men. And so the first thing I'm going to have to do is type all that in. So just bear with me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pretend I'm actually typing it in, but really what I'm doing is I'm going to go copy and paste. So copy. I'm now going to, I've just realised that I have to actually create a new document. So I'm going to create a new document. I'll actually choose yes to that. So new document. Now, remember, we've just created a widget. So what we want to do is actually add a widget. And I'm going to go and find that widget that I've actually just created, which was called W1. There it is. I'm going to add it. And there it is. It's popped in. Remember, that is how it looked like when we actually saved it. Now, what we need to do is actually split all those pages up. Now, the shortcut is actually Control-6. We could actually go through Doc, Page Layout, and then Ungroup, as you can see, which is above the group. But note the shortcut Control-6. I press Control-6 and there you have it. It's been the widget, all the separate pages of the widget have been split up. Now what I'm going to do is clear the data that I've got the widget working on. I'm now going to paste what I had before. Now remember what you'd be doing is actually typing these numbers in, but I'm trying to save a bit of time here, okay? Now if I was actually interested in the box plot of that data, I would click onto the Boxplot page, there it is there, and press Control Menu and Zoom Data. We'll quickly get the Boxplot up. Now this is an interesting result, isn't it, considering the fact of that second question, part of the question to explain whether that 26 is a outlier or not. But that is our Boxplot. But remember the first question said we had to work out the mean and the standard deviation of that data. Now this is where you need to be really careful here. It's not these results. Because remember on a calculator page, you actually have to keep doing the calculations on on new data. You've got to redo the calculations. So I'm just going to go up to where I last entered the data, enter the command, if you like, to do the calculations. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to press Enter. And now you can see that those key statistics have been calculated. There's the mean, 29.93, and then the standard deviation, sample standard deviation 1.26, which is the answer to that first question. All right. Now, remember what I said about these variables being created here? We could actually make use of these in terms of creating or calculating some of the other statistics that we're aware of. So, for instance, if you wanted to calculate the range is the maximum value. So you choose stat.max, take away, hit the var button, stat.min. That will actually work out the range for you. If you want to work out the interquartile range, it's going to be stat.q3, take away, stat.q1. There's the interquartile range. Okay. Now, I could go ahead and actually go ahead and work out there whether the 26 is an outlier by calculating the upper and lower fence. But what I think is we could actually improve on this widget, because what I would like to see is some of these results being automatically calculated for us. And that's, I guess, if you like, a disadvantage of using a calculator page in this way. And you may or may not have been aware of, there's been an earlier session tonight that actually focused on the use of the notes page application in further maths. And so I'm going to perhaps build on what was demonstrated. So I strongly encourage you, if you hadn't tuned into that, maybe go back to that recording at a later stage in the next few nights. So how are we going to, in fact, improve on this widget? Well, the first thing we're going to have to do is make sure that we go back and find the original file. So I'm going to, you need to go back, press the home button, go back to Browse or My Documents, go into the My Widgets folder, and we have to reopen that original widget that we've created, which was W1. There it is. I don't want to save that, no. There's the original folder, the original file, I should say. I'm going to press Control-6 to split them. There we are. I'm now going to, alter this because I don't want to actually use a calculator page anymore. Right? So I'm actually going to delete that page. So to delete the page, press Doc, Page Layout, and we're going to delete the page. Done. Now I'm going to go back to the first page there. Now what I want to do is insert, so press Control I, insert a notes page. Okay, so on the notes page, if we're going to do mathematics on the notes page, we actually have to insert a maths box. So Control M to insert a maths box. Now I want the calculations to be done in that, so I'm going to press Menu, Calculations. Now you'll notice that when we're on a notes application, there's an extra step here to go and find the menu that we're more familiar with. We actually have to choose Calculations first. This is the menu you'd be more familiar with and seen before. We're going to go down to Statistics, number 6, then up to Stat Calculations, then one variable Statistics. Press OK. All right. We're going to choose data because it's the variable that we're going to be using. We created in the widget, I should say. We press OK, and there's those results that we saw before. Now what I'm going to do is do a few extra things, because remember these variables over here were actually created. All right, and I'm going to make use of them like I've showed you before. So what I'm going to do is hit Escape. So I'm going to go, I want to calculate the range. So I'm going to go max, take away, stat dot, min. There's the range. Now I'm going to do the interquartile range. So var Q3, take away, hit the var button, stat.q1. So there's the interquartile range. So there's the range, interquartile range. Now perhaps we might want to have the lower fences also calculated, the lower fence and the upper fence, okay? So the lower fence is stat.q1, take away 1.5 times by, open our brackets, and it is Q3, take away Q1. There's the lower fence. The upper fence is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times by, open my brackets, Q3 minus var stat.q1. There's the upper fence. Now what I would actually do, I've got those calculated and working, I'm going to put my cursor up to the left there. Notice it's actually not inside the maths box. And I'm going to type in the word range. Maybe even range equals, space it a bit. This is the interquartile range, equals the space across a bit. Lower fence and upper fence okay, so got that basically formatted. It's not formatted really nicely, because what I would actually like to just have displayed is just the answers. So what I'm going to do is highlight all those lines. I press Control menu on the calculator, or right click if you're using the software, maths box attributes, and what I would like to do is hide the input. And if I press OK and then click off that, just the results are shown. I think I'll put an equals there before I do anything else, and I'm going to put an equals there before I do anything else. So that's actually formatted a little bit better. So now if you have a look at what we've got here, we've got the cuts, the results that you're more familiar with from the calculator page you've seen perhaps before, but we've also got these extra results being calculated. Okay, might be time. We've done a fair bit of work there, so we better Control save it. Now, essentially, I've got the new and improved version of that widget. So let's actually try it. Okay, so what we're going to, so we're going to redo those calculations that we did before. So first of all, though, we need to group the pages together. So Control 4 and Control 4 grouped together. Control Save. It's saved. It was already in my widgets, so we know that's actually in the My Widgets folder. All right, so it's actually ready to use. So what I'll do is we'll create a new document. New document, and we're going to add the widget. And we go and find it. W1. There it is. Okay, so Control 6 to split. Clear the data. And we're ready to go again. What I think I'll do is just keep this moving on a bit because we're running out of time already. I'm just going to punch these numbers in, and I'm going to show you the effect of what happens up next door. Obviously, you'd be wanting to actually redo the same data I had before. Now, to activate this page, you press Control A to select everything, and then the magic key sequence, menu, 1 for actions, and 1 to evaluate. And there you have it. There are those calculations automatically done. Okay. And then lastly, zoom, data. There's that box plot. Now, the beautiful thing about a notes page is if I put a few more numbers in, because I'm actually doing might have to do extra data or actually put a new set of data in the same question. If I go over here, the information, those calculations are automatically updated. And then the box plot is also automatically updated. All right, so that's an introduction on how to create a basic widget. All right. Now, the second part of this session tonight was actually showing you how to do what's called user-defined functions, and I'm a big fan of user-defined functions. All right, so perhaps an example of a question where you might be interested in doing user-defined functions would be something like I'll share my screen. Give me a second. Share my screen to the other screen. We've got a scatter plot here, and I've got a line of best fit, as you can see. And the question saying, find the equation of that line. There's a few different ways you've been taught, but I'm going to actually create a resource with you that would actually get this done really quickly. Take note that I'm going to use the point 080, which is on that red line, and the point 750, which is also on that red line, something I want to keep in mind. So, the user-defined function, here we go. This is pretty exciting stuff. So, I'm going to create a brand new file. I'm not going to save that, no. And I got
calculator.
Oh, yeah, better do that too. Thanks, mate. But give me a second. So share my screen and back to screen 1. How's that, Chris?
That's all good.
All right. So I haven't done anything except open up a new file. But now I'm going down to, I've lost my mouse, there we are, to Program Editor and New. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating a book that goes into our calculator library. We're actually going to create the book. What I'm about to do is create the first chapter of the book. All right, I'm going to call it line EQ for the line equation. All right, so program, it's going to be a program. This is the really important step here. You need to choose the third one. We want to show it in our catalog in the public library. And we press OK. All right, so we're ready to go. All right, so for a start, what we're going to do is I'm going to, in the brackets here, create 4 variables, x1, comma, y1. So that's the point x1, y1, which you'll be familiar with from maths in previous years, or even this year, comma, x2, comma, y2. So there are 4 variables. Now, in our body of our program, I'm going to do some calculations. First of all, I need to worry about the slope. All right. So the slope of the equation. Now remember, the slope of the equation is defined by basically rise on run, which we go b. I'm assuming the rule, by the way, y equals a plus bx, so a is the intercept and b is the slope. So I'm going to define b as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's going to calculate the slope of the line. The intercept, which is defined as A. So I press A, control equals, and I should say control, and the template button gives me that. And what we're going to do now is the rule for calculating the intercept is going to be y1 minus b times by x1. Okay. The last thing we want to do now is actually display the results. So I'm going to do display 3 things. If I press menu, go to input, output, and display number 1. I want to display basically the template, which is the response variable equals A plus B times by the EV. So A is intercept, B is the slope, like I said. Now I'm going to go menu, input, output, and display. And I'm going to say control quotation marks, A equals, and I go comma A. So that's what's going to be displayed on the screen, and after the comma A, it's going to display that result for whatever A calculates. And then display, and we go for the quotation marks again, B equals, and we'll go comma B. All right, that's our first little basic program. Now this sequence of storing is really, really important. You press Control B to store it. Now we're going to save the chapter. So Control Save. All right. And now what we need to do, we actually save this into, not my widgets, I've got to go up 1 level, into my lib. All right. So click on that, it says my lib. And I'm going to call this Maths is Fun. Now, when you're actually creating these books, make sure there's no spaces in the name, and you cannot start the name with a number. And you minimise to something like 13 characters as well. So keep it relatively short but obvious what it is. And I'm going to press Save. The last thing I'm going to do now is press Doc, and we must refresh the libraries. Really important that we do this, because you don't see anything when you actually try to run it. Job done. All right, now it's time to go and test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a brand new file, go to a calculator page. These items basically operate on a calculator page, right? So this is what we do now. Remember those points, so the point 0, 80 and 750. We're going to need that, all right? So I want to calculate the equation of that line there. So there's the book, Maths is Fun. And here's the chapter I've just created, linear EQ for linear equation. Now, the way this one's going to work out, inside the brackets now, I'm going to type in the numbers. So the first point is 0, 80. So 0, 80. So there's the point 0, 80. The second point is 7, 50. I press enter. There we have it. There's the intercept. There's the slope. Now, interestingly enough, take notice of how this has actually been displayed. I've been a bit naughty, and my document settings is on auto. So I'll just change that to approximate and press OK. And if I actually run that again, I'll just press enter. There you go. I've got the rounded off answers. Okay, so that's the first example. Now, I'm going to very quickly do two more examples, which I think you'll find very, very useful. And then you could actually expand on this. And it'll only take 5 minutes to do them, but it's actually very useful. So bear with me, but if we're going over time a little bit, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. Trust me on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and open up my book that I've actually created. So I've got to go back to Browse, back into my lib, all right, and go and find Maths is Fun. Do I say changes? No, I don't want to say change to the previous one. So there we go. I'm going to create a new one now. All right. So a new chapter in the book. So I'm pressing Control-I to insert another one of these program editors, new one. And I'm going to call this linear, or PRED, so linear predictions. So in other words, I'm going to use the least squares, or usually it's a least squares regression line to predict values. All right, it's still a program. Don't forget this important step. It's got to be in the public library. Now press OK. Now, instead of creating variables in the brackets, we're going to do a series of request statements. So we press Menu, Input, Output, and Request. Right, and then in quotation marks, we want the value of the intercept. The intercept, which remember is A, and again I'm going to call that A. Now we go Menu, Input, Output, Request. In quotation marks, again, we want the slope. Remember, is B. So that's going to be B. Input, Output, again, so Menu, Input, Output, and Request. Value of EV. And I'll call that EV. And input, output again, request, and quotation marks, value of RV, comma, RV. Right, we're nearly there. We want to solve, so I'm going to create a variable called answer. So IN for answer will do. I press Control and assign. I want to solve the equation RV equals A plus B times by EV, comma, question mark. Yes, solving for a question mark. That means with the thing that we don't know, we're going to put a question mark in. All right? And then put numbers into the rest. And then the answer will be displayed as a question mark. You'll see that operating soon. Lastly, we want to display the answer now, all right? So we're going to go Menu, and you've seen me use display tonight already. Input, output, and display. Quotation marks. And we're going to go answer. That'll do. All right. Now that's saving sequence. Control B to store it. Control save. Now it's saved it because it's part of the same book, remember, a second chapter of the book. But more really importantly, really importantly, document and refresh libraries. Job done. Right, let's go and test it. I'm going to go to the home button, new document, calculator page, hit the book button, and go and find Maths is Fun. There it is. And there is our linear predictor. So click on it, press enter. Now, like I said before, it's a good idea for a start when you're doing this for the first time, use numbers that we know the answer to. So if the intercept is 0, if the slope is 1, if the value of the explanatory variable is 2, if I do not know what the y value is or the RV value is, I'll put a question mark into that and press enter. We have the answer, not being shown. Whoops, I think I've made a mistake. That's all right. What we'll need to do is go and fix it. So just like before, we have to go and reopen the file. So I'm going to go find it, my library, and Maths is Fun. There it is. No, I don't. And let's go and find it. There's the problem. I had to go comma, AN. I need to display the answer. So, unfortunately, when you make a mistake like this, you've got to actually go through this saving process again. Control B, Control Save, and refresh the libraries. Job done. Let's go and test it. So I'm going to go to new document, calculator, and it'll work this time. Trust me, Maths is Fun. Linear predictor, press enter. Intercept is 0, gradient of 1, a value of the EV of 2, question mark for that. There you go, the answer is 2, working perfectly fine. Which means, if you've got an equation, I'll actually share my screen very quickly now. So if I just do the share, just bear with me. So share my second screen for a second. If I've got a linear equation, population equals 16.67 plus 0.27 times by the area, let's predict the population if the area is, say, 25 square kilometres. All right? So take note of the value of the slope and the value of the intercept. So this is how quickly this is going to work. So if I go back to share my screen again, and I'll pretend I've got to do the full sequence. Book, Maths is Fun, linear predicting. There we are. Press enter. So it was 13.67 was the value of the intercept. The slope was 0.27. And I said, let's predict the population if the area was 27 square kilometres, I should say. And then question mark for the RV, there's our predicted population. Now, mind you, if you don't know one of the others, you can put a question mark in and then put obviously the value in. So you've only got to put node 3 of the 4 and it'll be solved. Before we go, just one more thing to do, and this is not going to take anywhere near as long, but we know there's a whole bunch of transformations that we also actually have to do. Because I've actually set this first one up, it's very, very simple now to actually set the rest of the transformations up, which is really useful. So this is how we're going to go about it. So I'm going to turn around and reopen our book. So browse, back to my lib, go and find Maths is Fun. US I've changed, no I don't. Oh, cancel that. Maths is Fun. No, I don't. So there's my book. And this is essentially all the working we've got here for the transformations there. All we just effectively just copy it, essentially copy it, the whole thing. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to use the page sorter. So Control up arrow just gives me the page sorter. This is the one that I want to copy. It's actually highlighted. So it's highlighted. So press Control menu to copy it, then paste it straight away. So Control menu and paste it. There it is. There's the copy of it. If I click on it, see how it's actually renamed by putting a 1 after it. Now what I am going to do is rename it. So if I go menu, 1, and rename, I can now rename it as to what I want to call this. So I'm going to call this let's call it X SQ for the X squared transformation. Notice it's showing in there in the public library. We want that, and press OK. Everything here is you still actually want to be able to enter all this data in. That's no different. The only difference is the fact that I just have to square the explanatory variable. So all I'm going to do is press squared there. That's it. Job done. Press Control B to save it. Control S Control B to store it. Control S to save it. And don't forget the good old refresh libraries. Must do that. There it is. Now what I'll do is while we're here, we'll do it once more. We might as well do the y square. We've got the x squared transformation showing there, so let's do the y squared transformation. Right? So again, we're going to basically do the copy thing. So I'm going to go back to the page sorter. And I'm going to go Control menu copy. And then Control menu paste. There it is. As you can see now, x squared 1. We now have to rename this. So menu, oops, escape, actions, and rename. Let's call this y SQ for y squared. Press OK. Now don't forget, we've got to actually make the relevant change. All we have to do is get rid of the squared with the EV and make that RV squared instead. There we have it. Job done. So don't forget this sequence. Control B to store it. Control S to save it. And third, but very importantly, refresh your libraries. Job done. So let's go and actually make sure they're working. So if we go and open up a new document, calculator page, and book, Maths is Fun. There they are, displayed. Let's choose the x squared one. So press enter, write the intercept 0. Value of B is 2. The value of EV, let's make that 3. Question mark for that. There you go, the answer is 18, working perfectly fine. Notice you can probably tidy up some of the formatting here. You probably want an equals after the A and the B in the EV. So It's been a bit of a rush. That's why I've made a few blues there, but that's okay. All right. But while we're out, before we finish off, we'll go over to test the y-squared one. So hit the book again. Hit maths is fun. No one argue with that, of course. Maths is always fun. Y-square transformation. Press enter. Again, let's press 1 there. 3. Question mark. Oh no, make that 4. Question mark. And there we have it. You would normally ignore the negative value and just stick with the positive value 3.6. Well, that brings this evening to an end. It's been 3/4 of an hour, so it's gone a little bit over time, so I apologise for that, but I hope you get something out of tonight. I would particularly explore, if I was you, the user-defined functions, because they are a really good resource for the exams, very efficient and quick. If you have a look at the sheet that came with the supplementary sheet, I should say, I've given some other examples of what you could do to set up for a user-defined function. All right, Brian, that's it for me tonight. Bye-bye.